The fire had burned out hours ago, but the smell still clung to the air like a curse. Ash drifted over the field, soft as gray snow, settling on twisted wagon wheels and the black ribs of burned caravans. Horses stood in a nervous ring at the edge of the ruins, snorting and stamping, refusing to come closer to the place where so many screams had ended. On a broken wooden step, an old man sat alone, wrapped in a black coat that had once been expensive. His hair, once thick and dark, was streaked with white and smeared with soot. Heavy gold rings still clung to his fingers even though his hands trembled. The metal caught the weak morning light, as if the gold refused to admit that the man wearing it was no longer a king. His name was Marek Dragan. For 30 years, people had called him Baron. There had been a time when the road bent for him. Villages went silent the moment his wagons rolled into sight. He had 15 wives, more children than he could name in one breath, 4 lines of caravans, 3 herds of horses, and enough hidden money to buy a town if he wished. Men spoke his name with fear. Other barons spoke it with envy. Mothers whispered it as a warning to their daughters. Now the only voices around him were the distant crows. Marek looked at the blackened bones of his camp and felt nothing at first. No tears, no anger, only a heavy, tired silence pressing against his ribs like another kind of fire. His eyes moved slowly over the ruins, as if counting the ghosts. A pot half melted into the earth, a twisted brass bracelet, a child's doll lying face down in the ash, one arm missing. He could still see the camp as it had been the day before. Tents and wagons and music. The sharp smell of wood smoke and roasted meat. Children racing between the fires. Wives talking, laughing, shouting, silver earrings flashing in the light. Men playing cards under an awning, liquor burning their throats. Promises forgotten as soon as they were made. He blinked, and all of it turned back to cinders. This is what you built, he told himself in the quiet of his own skull. An empire of wheels and fire. A coughing fit twisted his body. He pressed his fist to his mouth until it passed. When he pulled his hand away, there was blood on his knuckles. Dark, almost black. Time, he thought, was finally collecting its debt. Footsteps crunched on the burned ground behind him. Slow, careful, as if the one walking was afraid to wake the dead. Marek did not turn. He knew that step. He could have recognized it in any darkness. Father, a voice said softly. Luka, his oldest living son. Not the strongest, not the cleverest, but the one whose eyes had never learned to be fully hard. You're still here, Luka said. The others have gone. Those who can stand, at least. Good, Marek answered without looking at him. They should go. There is nothing here but ghosts. Luka came to stand beside him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his face smeared with ash. His coat was ripped at one sleeve. A fresh cut marked his cheek, thin and red, where a blade had almost claimed his life. He smelled of sweat and smoke and fear that had not entirely left his bones. This is the end, father, Luka said quietly. For the camp. For you. Maybe for Gavril too. The village down the hill is ruined. The police will come. They will bring soldiers if they must. People will spit our names like curses. Marek's lips twitched into something that might once have been a smile. They have done that for years, he murmured. This is only the echo. Luka's hands closed into fists at his sides. Was it worth it? He asked. All the nights with fire. All the raids. All the houses burned. All the people taken from other camps. All the gold. All the horses. All the wives. Was this worth it? Marek finally looked at his son. His eyes were dark and sunken, but still sharp enough to read the pain on Luka's face. In that pain, he saw something of himself, a lifetime ago, when he had been only a boy on a cold road. It depends, Marek said slowly, on where you start the story. His gaze drifted back to the ruins. The melted bracelets, the doll in the ash, a burned-out wagon that had once borne the painted name of his family. If you start here, he whispered, then no. Nothing was worth this. His voice passed over the rubble like smoke. But if you start earlier, he went on, with a boy who had nothing and no one. On a road without a name the story feels different. He closed his eyes. Behind his lids the gray light shifted. Ash became snow. Charred poles became pine trees. The smell of smoke turned into the scent of wet earth and horses. Somewhere in his memory, a violin began to play a thin, bright tune. Then start there, Luka said. If you still can, start at the beginning. Marek's fingers tightened on the burned step until his rings cut into his skin. At the beginning, he repeated. Listen, then, and understand that a man does not become a monster in one night. It takes many winters. He drew in a slow breath, and the past opened like a deep, black road before him. He had not always been barren. Once, he had been nothing at all. He grew up in a camp so small it hardly cast a shadow on the land. 3 old wagons, 1 torn canvas tent, and a circle of stones where the fire burned. The wheels were cracked, the horses were thin, and the pots were never full enough. His mother had 3 dresses and 1 pair of boots with a split sole. His father had strong hands, a weak back, and a talent for losing every coin he touched. "We are cursed," his father would mutter after another day without work, staring at the dust between his boots. "Some men are born for silver, some for dust. We are the second kind." Marek listened, but he did not agree. He watched how their own little baron, an old man named Stefan, moved through the camp. Stefan did not lift heavy things. He did not work more than other men. He did not play cards better. Yet coins always flowed toward him. Farmers brought him chickens and sacks of grain to make problems go away. Men asked for his blessing before fights. Women came to him with questions about children, marriages, fear. Stefan was not taller than other men. His arms were thin. He wheezed when he climbed into his wagon. But when he stepped into any circle, conversation changed. Backs straightened, eyes lowered. Why do they listen to him? Marek asked his mother once, when he was 12. "Because he decides where we sleep," she answered, stirring a thin soup. "Who is punished? Who is forgiven? That is enough." Marek thought about that for a long time. He watched how Stefan turned every argument to his advantage. He listened to how the old man never said yes or no to fast. He studied how Stefan sat, how he held himself, how he let silence work for him. The winter Marek turned 14. The cold arrived early and hard. Snow fell thick and wet, pressing wagons deeper into the mud. Work disappeared. Villages locked their doors. Bread grew thinner. One night, Marek lay under a blanket with his younger brothers and listened to his parents whisper. "We can't stay," his mother said. "Stefan refuses to move south. He says the signs are good here. He is wrong. The children are shrinking. Look at Marek's brothers. Their eyes are always tired." "Where would we go?" his father hissed back. "Away from the camp." "With what?" "These old wheels and 1 lame horse. We would freeze on the road." "People are leaving," she answered. "Families from the other wagons. They whisper about another camp across the border, about a baron named Dragan. They say he takes in new people. They say he pays for good hands. They say he keeps his people safe." "Traitors," his father spat. "Rats running from their own. That baron will use them and throw them away. Better to starve with your own than bow to a stranger." There was a long silence. Only the snapping of the fire outside and the quiet breathing of children. In the morning, Marek climbed onto the highest wagon roof and looked at the road leading away from their little camp. Snow lay in broken lines where wheels had passed. He imagined walking along those tracks alone. He imagined finding this Dragan camp. He imagined offering his 2 hands and the anger sitting quietly at the base of his throat. That evening, he stole a loaf of bread, kissed his sleeping brothers on the forehead, and walked away without saying goodbye. The road was harder than he had imagined. The snow seeped through his worn boots. Wind clawed at his face. He followed wagon tracks for 3 days, eating slowly from his stolen loaf. He slept under hedges, under the skeletons of trees, behind rocks. His fingers cracked and bled. Still he walked. On the 4th day, he saw smoke on the horizon. Not a thin line, but many threads rising together. He pushed his aching legs to move faster. The Dragan camp was larger than anything he had seen. Wagons stood in 3 rings, painted with bright colors and careful patterns. Horses grazed in a fenced field, their coats thick and shining. Fires burned under iron pots, heavy with steam that smelled of garlic and meat. Men laughed loudly. Women carried buckets and babies. Children darted under wagons like shadows. At the center of it all burned the biggest fire. Round it, on low chairs and solid boxes, sat the men who looked like they owned the night. In their middle sat the baron. Anton Dragan was not young, but he was strong. His chest was broad, his neck thick. His hair was black with silver at the sides. He wore a fur-lined coat and heavy rings that caught the firelight. When he laughed, people near him laughed too, even if they had not heard the joke. Marek stood at the edge of the camp, watching. He had expected to be noticed at once, to be chased away by dogs or guards. But the camp moved around him as if he were just another shadow. Nobody looked twice. He could have turned back. He could have gone home, begged Stefan's forgiveness, accepted his father's curse dust. Instead, he walked straight toward the center fire. 2 men blocked his way. They were broad-shouldered and scarred, with the easy balance of men who had been in many fights and walked away from all of them. One wore a knife at his belt, the other a pistol under his coat. "Where are you going, boy?" the knife man asked. To your baron, Marek answered. His voice did not shake. I have work in my hands and use in my head. One want to sell both. The men exchanged a glance. Plenty of mouths already, the man with the pistol said. Go back to whatever ditch you crawled out of. I came from Stefan's camp, Marek said. Across the snow, on foot. I left because he is old and weak. Because he will starve us all in his stubbornness. I heard your baron buys good blood. I have no family with me. Nobody to slow me down. Only these hands. He raised them, fingers cracked and bleeding, open toward the firelight. The knife man studied him for a long moment, then shrugged and stepped aside. Let the baron look at his own choices, he said. If he has you whipped, don't cry. Marek walked forward until the heat of the main fire warmed his frozen skin. Conversations around the circle quieted. Men turned to see what kind of fool approached their baron without being called. Anton Dragan looked at him with dark, amused eyes. Look at the snow crow, he said. All bones and frost. Who let you in, boy? I walked in, Marek said simply. The road was open. The men around the fire chuckled. You walked from where? Anton asked. From Stefan's camp, Marek replied. 3 days. I followed your tracks. Stefan, Anton repeated, tasting the name like something sour. Still alive. That old snake. For now, Marek said. But if he keeps listening only to his pride, he will bury half his people this winter and call it destiny. A low murmur went around the circle. A few men laughed outright at the boldness of the reply. You talk bigger than your boots, Anton observed. What do you want, Crow? I place, Marek said. Work. A fire that doesn't die every night. You take other families in. Take me. I have no wife, no children, no wagon. I move fast. One listen well. I never forget a face or a slight. And what will you give me? Anton asked. Besides your sharp tongue. Marek looked straight into the baron's eyes. I will give you my loyalty until I draw my last breath, he said. As long as you stay strong. As long as you do not become Stefan. For a moment, there was only the crackle of the fire. Then Anton Dragan threw back his head and laughed. The sound rolled across the camp like a drumbeat. You see him? He asked the men around him. Skinny as a stick, but he speaks like a man with 5 knives and no fear. What is your name, Crow? Marek, the boy said. Marek, son of nobody important. From today, Marek, Anton said, you eat at our fire. You sleep under our wagons. You work until your bones ache. And we will see if there is something sharper inside you than that tongue. Marek bowed his head. That is all I ask, Baron. It did not take long for Anton to understand what he had really invited into his camp. Marek worked like a man who feared every morning would be his last chance. He hauled water, chopped wood, scrubbed pots until his fingers split. He watched the older men, studied how they spoke, how they stood, how they threatened without raising a hand. When others played cards, Marek listened instead. He remembered every story, every grudge, every secret. He learned to fight from a one-eyed man named Tomas, who smashed the softness out of him with fists and boots. Marek took every hit and came back for more. He learned to ride from a woman named Rada, who cursed at him until he stayed on the horse through every turn. He learned to read from one of Anton's wives, a quiet woman who saw something cold and hungry in his eyes and decided to give him letters, so he could one day count his own coins. Years passed. The skinny snow crow filled out into a lean, strong young man with quick hands and a careful smile. He learned to move like the men who guarded the camp. He learned where Anton kept his money. He learned which farmers were afraid, which were greedy, which would pay to have trouble disappear. He fought in small skirmishes on dark roads when other groups challenged Anton. He saw men bleed in the light of burning torches, heard the wet sound of knives sliding into flesh. The first time he watched someone die, he vomited behind a tree. Tomas slapped the back of his head. Either stop shaking or put down the knife, Tomas told him. This life doesn't give you room to be both wolf and lamb. Marek chose. He stopped shaking. When he was 19, Anton called him to the center fire again. The Baron's hair was grayer, but his voice still carried weight. You've earned your place, Anton said. You've taken cuts for us. You've brought in money. You don't drink like a fool. And I've watched the way you listen. I have men who move their fists fast. I have men who shoot straight. I have very few who listen the way you do. I need that. Marek waited. I'm giving you 10 men, Anton said. You will lead them when I tell you. You will collect from some of the villages. You will talk to other camps. You will watch and you will bring back what you see. You will be my eyes when I cannot be everywhere. Your eyes, Marek repeated. And my teeth, when it's needed, Anton added. But hear me, boy. Teeth are easy to find. Eyes are rarer. Don't become just another mouth that only knows how to bite. Marek nodded. I understand. Anton looked at him for a long moment. And another thing, the Baron said. You're not a boy anymore. You served my fire loyally. It's time you had a family. He called into the shadows. A young woman stepped forward, pushing a loose curl of dark hair behind her ear. Gold rings glittered on her wrists. Her eyes were steady but wary. This is Lila, Anton said. My wife's younger cousin. She is clever, she is healthy, she has a tongue that sometimes needs someone stronger to answer it. You can have her, if she agrees. Marek looked at the girl. She looked back at him. I won't be beaten for every word I say, Lila said calmly. And I won't live with a man who drinks himself into a beast. If you can promise me that much, I'll be your wife. Marek inclined his head. I don't waste money on stupid drink, he said. And I only hit those who try to break me first. A smile flickered across Lila's mouth, small and sharp. That might be enough, she said. Anton laughed. Then it settled. Marek, you have a wife. Lila, you have a husband. Go make strong children and more work for me. That night, as music rose and people danced around the fire, Marek held Lila's hand and felt the shape of a new life forming. He had a place. He had a woman at his side. He had 10 men who looked to him for orders. He had a baron who trusted him. He thought it was enough. It was not. Ambition is a quiet thing at first. A whisper at the edge of the fire. A voice asking why not more. The first time Marek met another baron as a man with his own men, it was by a wide river, under a pale sky. Anton had called a gathering. Wagons from 3 camps stood at a cautious distance from each other. Fires burned in separate circles. Men watched each other over the flames like wolves at the edge of another pack's territory. Marek stood behind Anton's right shoulder, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his knife, his eyes moving across the faces around the main fire. He saw suspicion, calculation, old hatred, new hunger. Across from Anton sat Gavril Stoica, a baron with a long scar down his cheek and eyes like 2 pieces of dirty ice. On his left sat Lehos, thick and loud. On his right, a younger man named Petru, thin and sharp like a blade. They spoke of wintering grounds, of rivers and passes, of which villages were off limits and which were fair game, of horses, of markets, of police who grew too curious. Gavril wanted more control along the road that cut through the hills. Anton refused. The villages there have fed my people for 10 years, Anton said. My wagons were bleeding on that road when you were still chasing chickens in muddy boots. I give up nothing. You give up what we decide you give up, Gavril answered. The road changes. The men change. You're not the only one with wagons anymore. You're not the only baron whose name opens doors. They argued, drink heeding their words. Marek watched the lines of power shift across the circle. He watched who laughed when Gavril spoke, who nodded when Anton did. He noted which of Lajos' men looked to Petru more than to their own baron. At one point, Gavril's eyes slid past Anton and landed on Marek. And who is this? Gavril asked. The crow you picked up from Stefan's ashes. Marek's jaw tightened. He is my man, Anton said. That is enough. His man, Gavril repeated, smiling thinly. Tell me, Crow, do you enjoy carrying another's coat? Has he promised you a little chair by the fire when he grows too old to stand? Marek could have stayed silent. A wise man might have. But something in him relaxed instead, like a hand releasing its grip. I enjoy eating, Marek said calmly, which I do every day. I enjoy warm boots, which I wear. I enjoy the sound of my wife's breathing at night, which means she is still alive. All of which I have because I did not tie my life to a man who spends most of his time counting other people's mistakes instead of his own. The air around the fire tightened. Men shifted, hands sliding toward belts. Gavril's smile died. You have a sharp tongue, he said softly. I've seen tongues cut shorter for less. Marek kept his face still. And I've seen men with long knives die because their brains were too short for their steel. He replied. Anton laughed loudly, breaking the tension. That's enough, he said. We came here to talk roads, not tongue lengths. Gavril, the boy is mine. If you want to cut him, you go through me. Gavril glanced at Anton, then back at Marek. Something cold settled in his eyes. Then I will remember both your faces, Gavril said, for a day when there is less fire and more darkness between us. That night, when the barons retreated to their separate camps, Anton called Marek to his wagon. He poured 2 glasses of clear liquor and handed one to Marek. You were brave, Anton said, and stupid. Gavril is not a man who forgets an insult. Then he is not the only one, Marek answered. Anton studied him over the rim of his glass. I chose you because you listen, Anton said. Because you watch. Don't become one of these men who think their tongue is a sword. Real swords are heavier. They leave marks you can't wash away. Marek nodded, but inside, something had already shifted. He had seen the way men watched him today, not just as a servant of the Baron, but as something else, a man with his own shadow. The first house he ever burned was not a house of a villager. It was a wagon. One of Gavril's men had tried to steal horses from Anton's herd under cover of night. Marek and his men caught him with a rope in his hands and panic in his eyes. They beat him until he could barely breathe, then dragged him in front of Anton. "You can send him back with a warning," Lila said quietly that night, when Marek told her what had happened. "Sometimes fear is enough." Marek shook his head. "If we send him back breathing," he said, "Gavril will laugh. He will say we are soft. And softness is blood in the water. Everyone will come to taste it. So what will you do?" she asked. Marek already knew. They tied the thief to his own wagon and set it on fire at dawn, when the sky was still pale. The man screamed. The horses screamed. The fire roared. Smoke climbed into the sky like a black flag. Marek watched, his face calm, even as his stomach twisted. Tomas stood beside him, nodding once. "This is how men like us speak," Tomas said, with fire and fear. "They don't listen to words. They listen to the way their hands shake when they light the next cigarette." Later, alone, Marek vomited behind a tree again. This time, he did not let anyone see. Word of the burned wagon spread quickly. Farmers whispered about it. Other camps heard. Some were horrified. Some were impressed. Some were both. Anton's name grew heavier. So did Marek's. People started calling him Fire Marek when they thought he could not hear. He pretended not to care. But when he heard one of Anton's wives use the name in a story, he felt something warm and dangerous in his chest. Lila watched him with unreadable eyes. "You like it," she said one night as they lay in their wagon. The fire outside a dull glow through the canvas. "The way men say your name now. The way they flinch a little when you walk past. It keeps them respectful," he answered. "It keeps them afraid," she corrected. "Fear and respect are cousins, Marek, but they don't walk the same way. Be careful which one you invite to your table." He kissed her shoulder and changed the subject. As Anton grew older, Marek's power grew. He took more men. He handled more negotiations with villages. He arranged meetings with other camps. He made deals that brought money and deals that brought trouble. And slowly, sometimes by choice, sometimes by accident, he began to gather people around himself, not just around Anton. When the first of his 15 wives came, he still believed he could control the path he walked. By the time the 15th came, he was no longer sure if he controlled anything at all. It did not happen overnight. The second wife came when Lila could not carry a child to term, and an old woman in the camp whispered that another womb might bring better fortune. The third came as part of a deal with a small family that wanted Marek's protection. The fourth he chose because she rode like a devil and laughed at danger. Others came with their own stories. Some were gifts from families who wanted his favor. Some were women who chose him themselves, seduced by power and gold and the rumor of a man who could bend fire. Marek did not force them with his hands. He rarely needed to. The gravity of his name did the work for him. His wives lived in 3 wagons. They fought, they formed alliances, they raised children together and separately. They loved him, hated him, feared him, needed him, sometimes all in the same day. He visited them on his own rhythm, sometimes giving kindness, sometimes only fatigue, sometimes nothing but orders. Among them, one stayed quieter than the rest. Zara came from a small, broken camp that had been almost swallowed by Gavril's people. Her father had begged Marek to take his family before Gavril did. Marek had agreed, seeing both the usefulness and the cruelty in the act. In saving them, he had also stolen them from Gavril's grasp. That small victory tasted good. Zara was his youngest wife. She had eyes the color of wet earth and a way of watching the world. That made Marek feel strangely naked. She did not talk much. When she did, her words were simple but sharp. One night, as the camp slept on a wide meadow under a sky full of stars, Marek lay awake beside Zara and listened to the distant snore of horses. "Tell me something," she said suddenly. "About what?" "About the houses you burned," she said. He turned his head. "I burned wagons," he corrected. "Camps who crossed us, not houses of villagers. That would be stupidity. It would bring too much attention." Zara's gaze did not move. "You will burn houses too," she said. "One day, when a baron is not enough of an enemy anymore, when you start fighting ghosts and reputations, and when that day comes, something will break that you won't be able to fix with money or blood." Marek laughed softly. "You talk like an old woman, little one," he said. "All curses and fog." She did not laugh. I talk like someone who has seen what men like you do when they start believing. They are bigger than the road, Zara answered. Be careful, Marek. The fire you throw always remembers the hand that lit it. He kissed her to stop the words, but they stayed with him, like a splinter under the skin. The War of the Barons did not begin with a grand declaration. It began with horses. Gavril's men started cutting into Anton's trade. They made deals with farmers who had always worked with the Dragan camp. They undercut prices. They offered protection in exchange for loyalty. They whispered that Anton was old, that his camp was not as strong as it once was. Anton raged. He sent messages. He sent warnings. But his hands were slower now, his voice a little thinner. Men who had once feared him started to calculate how long they must wait. Marek did not wait. We hit them on the road, he said to Anton one night as snow fell silently outside the wagon. Not in the villages. On the road. We take their horses. We take some of their people. We strip the skin from their pride. We make them remember that a Dragan is not to be touched. With whose men? Anton asked. Mine? With mine, Marek said. Anton's eyes searched his face. You've already decided, Anton said. You're not asking. You're telling. I'm giving you the courtesy of knowing before everyone else, Marek replied. You made me your eyes and your teeth. Let me bite. Anton looked very old for a moment. Bite too deep, and you might find yourself eating your own tongue, he said softly. But he did not forbid it. The first ambush went smoothly. Marek and his men waited in a cut of the road where the trees leaned in close. Gavril's wagons rattled into the narrow path at dawn, their men sleepy, their horses unprepared. Marek's riders hit them hard and fast. They broke the guards, took the horses, took 2 young men and 1 family, who had been reluctant to leave Anton's camp in the first place. When the dust settled, Marek stood in the middle of the road, breathing hard, a knife in his hand and blood on his coat. Round him, his men shouted with rough joy, counting the catch. Luka, who had joined Marek's crew that year, looked pale. Those people, Luka said quietly, nodding toward the family huddled together under a tree. They look like us. They are like us. They were stupid enough to ride with Gavril, Marek said. If they want to live, they'll be smarter tomorrow. And if tomorrow you ride with someone I hate and I cut your wagon in half? Luka asked. Marek gave a short, humorless laugh. Then I will have grown old and weak, he answered. And I will deserve it. They took the captives back to their own camp. Some begged to be allowed to leave. Some offered to swear loyalty. Marek made some of them his, placed others under Anton's direct watch. People became coins in a game that kept growing. Gavril answered the ambush with his own. One of Anton's smaller groups was attacked in a forest. 2 wagons burned. 3 men died. A boy of 12, who had only just been trusted to ride beside his father, was found with his throat cut. The boy's mother tore her hair and cursed Gavril's name until her voice broke. The road thickened with blood. In the middle of this slow-burning war walked a man with sharp eyes and a sharper smile. His name was Ian, and he was Marek's cousin, though they had not grown up together. Ian came from yet another camp that had broken under the pressure of changing times. He arrived in Marek's camp with nothing but a decent horse and a pocket full of jokes. Ian had a way of standing beside a man and making him feel taller. He flattered, he listened, he laughed at the right moments. But behind his easy grin, his eyes were cold and restless. You have half the camp already, Ian told Marek one night as they shared a bottle under the open sky. You walk like a baron. Men look at you before they look at Anton. The only thing you're missing is the word itself. I have what I need, Marek said. A fire, a bed, power. The word is only a word. Ian chuckled. You lie badly, cousin, he said. You want it. You want your own camp, your own throne, your own circle of barons listening when you speak. Why pretend otherwise? Men like us are not made to sit in the second chair forever. Marek took a long drink. And you? He asked. What are you made for? I am made to stand beside the man who will not be content with scraps, Ian answered. I am made to whisper the hard truths in his ear, the truths he is afraid to speak out loud. Marek looked at him. And what hard truth do you want to whisper now? He asked. That Anton is dying, Ian said simply. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon enough. And when he goes, every man with a knife and a loud voice will try to claim his place. If you do nothing, the camp will break into pieces. Some will go to Gavril, some to Lahoz, some will wander alone. Your wives, your children, your brothers, all of them will be pulled like meat between dogs. Marek's jaw clenched. So what do you suggest? He asked. That you get there first, Ian said. That you start calling meetings. That you make deals. That you act like a baron before the word is given. so that when the old man finally closes his eyes, nobody even remembers a time when you weren't in his chair. Marek stared into the darkness. The idea tasted both sweet and bitter. When you plant a tree, Zara had told him once, you don't get to complain when its roots crack your house. Ian's words were seeds. Marek let them fall into his mind anyway. He began to change small things. At first, nothing big enough to scare Anton. He arranged gatherings at rivers and forests. He was the one who sent word to Lehos, to Petru, to smaller leaders whose names did not carry the full weight of barons, but still had men behind them. He negotiated safe passages, trade routes, shared hiding places for stolen goods. He solved quarrels over horses. He decided which village belonged to whom. He did it in Anton's name, but everyone could see whose voice carried. The more he did, the more other barons looked at him, not at Anton, when they spoke of plans. They envied him, hated him, needed him. Gavril hated him most of all. At a big horse fair once, near a town where the police usually looked the other way as long as nobody made too much noise, Marek walked through the rows of animals like a king inspecting his army. His coat was dark, his boots polished, his rings heavy. 2 of his wives walked behind him, Lila and another named Mira, wrapped in fine scarves. Gavril stood with his own men near a pen of strong, gray horses. When he saw Marek, his mouth curled. Look at this, he said loudly enough for others to hear. The baron without a crown. I wonder if he sleeps at night or if he lies awake, counting other men's wagons. Marek could have ignored it. Instead, he turned. Good horses, he said calmly, nodding at the pen. A shame they'll be wasted under your men. They ride like sacks of potatoes. A few bystanders snorted with laughter. Gavril's eyes narrowed. At least my men know which camp they belong to, Gavril said. They don't change fire for the flavor of the soup. Marek's smile was small and sharp. Some men don't leave because the soup is better, he said. They leave because the old pot has too many cracks, and they are tired of watching everything leak away. For a moment, the fight almost turned bloody. Hands tightened on knives. Voices rose. It was only because the police were watching the fair that Gavril held himself back. He leaned close instead, so only Marek could hear. One day there will be no farmers and no policemen watching, he whispered. And on that day, I will show you the price of your tongue. Marek did not flinch. I pay every day, he replied, with blood that is mine and blood that is not. Be sure you can afford your own bill when it comes. They stepped away from each other, but the space between them felt like a fuse waiting for a spark. The houses came later. It was Ian who suggested it. Gavril has grown comfortable, Ian said one night as they sat over a map scratched into the dirt. He thinks you will only hit his wagons. He thinks the villages around him are safe. He thinks you care too much about attracting attention. You want him to feel what real fear is. Touch the things he thinks are not part of the game. You're talking about villagers, Luca said from the shadows. People who have nothing to do with our quarrel. Ian shrugged. They profit from it, he said. They buy our stolen things. They feed us. They hide us when it suits them. Nobody is innocent here, boy. Not really. Marek stared at the rough circles in the dirt, the little marks that meant houses, barns, roads. Empty houses, he said at last. No people inside. We burn a farm he uses. We send a message to him, not to the village. If anyone dies, the police will hunt us like dogs. Ian smiled slowly. Empty houses still scream loudly when they burn, he said. Zara's words came back to Marek like a cold wind. You will burn houses too, and something will break that you cannot fix. He could still stop it. He knew that. He could stand up, kick the map, tell Ian to shut his clever mouth. He could say, enough, we burn wagons, not villages. He could be that man, if he chose. Instead, he nodded. We do it on a night when the wind is strong, he said. So the flames move fast, and Gavril's people don't have time to save anything. We leave symbols. We make sure he knows exactly whose fire it was. Luca watched him, something like disappointment in his eyes. Marek did not look at his son. The night they burned the first house, the sky was moonless. The wind bent the trees. The farm they chose stood at the edge of a village that had always fed Gavril's camp first. It was empty that week. The family had traveled to the city for a wedding. Marek knew this. He had waited for it. They rode in silently, torches wrapped in cloth to hide the light. They poured kerosene over wood and straw. Marek stood with a torch in his hand, feeling the oil drip down his fingers. This is your choice, Luca said quietly beside him. You can still walk away. Marek's jaw tightened. If I walk away, he said, Gavril will not. He will do worse. And men will say I was afraid. Sometimes fear keeps you human, Luca replied. Marek threw the torch. Flames licked up the side of the house, hungry and fast. They climbed the walls, found the roof, rushed inside. In moments, the building was a roaring monster of heat and light. From a distance, dogs barked. A bell rang. Men shouted. Marek's riders melted back into the darkness like ghosts. As they watched from a hill, the fire lit Gavril's night. "It is done," Ian said with satisfaction. "Now he knows there are no lines you won't cross." "That is not a comfort," Luka whispered. Under the burning sky, Marek felt something loosen inside him, like a rope slipping off a post. The fire was no longer just a tool. It was a language. And like all languages, it began to speak through him as much as he spoke through it. From that night on, things moved faster. Gavril struck back harder. Camps aligned themselves one way or another. Families were pulled like cloth between hands, some torn, some stretched thin. Villages locked their doors more often. Police grew less blind. Within Marek's own camp, cracks deepened. His 15 wives tried to keep their children safe in a world that smelled constantly of smoke. Lila grew tired and sad, spending more time in the corner of their wagon with a shawl around her shoulders. Some of Marek's younger wives, drunk on jewelry and the thrill of his name, bragged about the raids as if they were stories in a song. Others cried quietly when no one watched. Zara moved like a shadow among them, tending to children, to small wounds, to small hopes. She did not preach. She did not shout. But sometimes she looked at Marek as he walked past, and in her eyes he saw not fear, not admiration, but pity. That, more than anything, made him angry. Ian whispered louder in his ear now. "Gavril is weak," Ian insisted. "You've hit him on the road. You've burned his farm. Half his men are thinking of leaving. He will try something desperate. You need to move first. One last blow. Crush his camp completely. Take his people. Take his wagons. Then no one will question that you are Baron above all barons." Marek's heart beat faster at the picture. One last war. One last night. Then peace, of a kind. "How?" he asked. Ian smiled. "He is planning to hide near the border village," Ian said, "between the forest and the river. He thinks the police will protect him there. He thinks you will not dare bring your war so close to the town. He forgets that you are not a man who stops at lines other people draw." "Who told you this?" Luka asked sharply. "A man who knows how to listen," Ian replied. "Leave that to me. You, Luka, should learn how to fight without apologizing to the enemy." Luka shook his head. "There is no enemy out there," he said, pointing into the darkness. "The enemy is already in our own circle, telling us that fire will fix what it always breaks." Marek raised a hand. "Enough," he said. "We plan. We finish this. Then we speak of peace." Zara did not hear the details of the plan, but she felt the shape of it in the air. She saw the way the men moved, the way the women clung to their children. She heard in the night how some of Marek's men spoke of the coming raid as if it were a festival. She went to Marek's wagon and stood in the doorway without knocking. He looked up, surprised. "You forget how doors work?" he asked. "I remember how hearts break," Zara replied. "I can come in when I choose." He gestured for her to sit. She stayed standing. "You are going to the border village," she said. "You are taking all your best men. You are planning to burn everything between the trees and the river if you must. Don't bother to deny it. The children feel it when they sleep. Fear moves under the canvas like smoke." Marek's face hardened. "He started this," Marek said. "Gavril. He cut our men. He stole our people. He spread rumors. He laughed at my name. I will end it. You started this the day you decided that every insult must be paid with blood," Zara said. "You started this when you let fire become your tongue. This is the world we live in," Marek snapped. "If I show weakness, everyone will take everything. You think I like it. You think I enjoy watching my own children fall asleep with their boots near the door, in case they have to run in the night. I do what I must so they have a chance to grow up at all." Zara's eyes were wet, but her voice stayed steady. "And if they grow up only to learn that the only way to live is to burn others first?" she asked. "What have you given them then?" Marek slammed his fist into the table, making a lantern jump. "This is not a church sermon," he said. "This is survival. I will not crawl in the mud begging Gavril to be kind. I will break him. Then we will have peace. That is the only language men like him understand." "Men like him," Zara repeated softly. "And men like you." He stood up, towering over her. "I am Baron," he said. "The lives of hundreds depend on me. Your life depends on me. You may not like my road, but you walk on it anyway. If you cannot walk, stay behind. Look after the children. Let the men do what only they can do." She looked up at him for a long moment. Then she bowed her head. "I will look after the children," Zara said. Because someone must be here to count the ones who do not come back. She turned and left without another word. The night of the last raid came cold and sharp. The stars were clear and faint, as if they were afraid to look down. Marek rode at the front of his men, the leather of his gloves creaking as he gripped the reins. Ian rode on his left, Luca on his right. They moved through the forest like a line of shadows. Ahead lay the border village, sleeping under its tiled roofs. Nearby lay the clearing where, according to Ian, Gavril's camp waited like a wounded animal. We hit the camp first, quiet and fast, Marek told his men before they left. We keep the fighting away from the houses if we can. We take his wagons, his people, his horses. We leave enough of him alive to remember who did it. And if the village wakes, Luca asked, then they will see what happens when they shelter a man like Gavril. Ian answered before Marek could speak. Fear is a fine teacher. The forest thinned. They saw the flicker of fires ahead between the trees. Marek raised his hand and his riders spread out. What happened next did not go according to anyone's plan. Gavril had not hidden like a wounded animal. He had waited like a hunter. Ian's information had been true enough to draw Marek in, but not complete enough to save him. Gavril's men lay in the trees on either side of the path. As Marek's riders approached the clearing, torches flared into life all around them. Gunshots cracked. Horses screamed and reared. Ambush! Luca shouted. Marek spun his horse, pulling his pistol, firing into the flashes of light. Men fell. Horses crashed into one another. The line that had come so smoothly turned into chaos. Gavril rode out into the clearing, his scar shining in the firelight. Here you are, Crow, he shouted across the noise. In the darkness you wanted. Marek tried to regroup his men, but the forest itself seemed full of enemies. Every tree spat fire. Men who had ridden by his side for years fell with their mouths open in surprise. Somebody's torch flew, wild and uncontrolled, through the air. It landed not on a wagon, but on the roof of one of the village houses at the edge of the trees. The dry wood caught like straw. Flames raced up the wall, found the thatch, burst into hungry life. Wind took glowing sparks and flung them onto neighboring roofs. Within minutes, half the village was burning. Women screamed. Children ran into the streets, barefoot and crying. Men grabbed buckets, only to drop them as bullets whined past their heads. Marek saw it all in terrible pieces as he fought. A child standing alone in a doorway, face lit orange. A woman dragging a trunk out into the road as the house behind her collapsed. A man beating at a door already blazing, shouting a name that Marek could not hear. This wasn't the plan. Luca shouted, his voice hoarse. We have to pull back. We have to get the fire away from the houses. If we pull back now, Gavril will chase us and finish us on the road, Ian snarled. This is our only chance. Finish him, and the village will survive what it survives. No one remembers the spark when they count the ashes. Marek's heart hammered. Smoke clawed his throat. Through the chaos, he saw Gavril turning his horse toward the river, gathering his core men to flee. Coward, Marek thought. After all this, he runs. He kicked his horse, forcing it forward. We take him now, he roared. We end it. For a few minutes, it seemed within reach. Marek's remaining men cut a path through the mess, following Gavril's retreating shadow. The river glinted ahead, black and silver. The flames from the village painted the sky behind them red. Then a shot rang out from somewhere to his left. Marek felt a hot fist punch into his side. The world tilted. He clung to the saddle, teeth bared, vision narrowing. He did not fall, not at once. He drove his horse forward stubbornly, 2, 3 more lengths, until another shot cracked past his ear and he realized that Gavril was gone. The enemy baron had vanished into the night, leaving wreckage behind him. Luca was suddenly at Marek's side, grabbing his reins. Father, Luca shouted. You're hit. It's nothing, Marek said, but the word twisted into a cough. When he pulled his hand away from his side, it came back red and slick. They retreated, or what was left of them did. Some men rode alone, their horses mad with terror. Some did not ride at all. By the time Marek's camp came into view again, the wound in his side felt like a burning coin pressed deeper with every breath. He slid from his horse and dropped to one knee, the world spinning. Hands grabbed him. Voices blurred. Zara's face appeared above him, pale and hard. Get him inside, she said. Now. Luca, hold his shoulder. Ian, if you don't move that table, I will move it with your skull. Someone carried him into his wagon. Someone tore his shirt. Someone pressed cloth to his wound. The pain was white and everywhere. He drifted in and out of it, sometimes hearing snatches of words. The village, someone said. Half of it is gone. Gavril, another voice. Gone too. Maybe dead, maybe not. Nobody knows. He vanished like smoke. Police, someone whispered. They'll come. They have to. Marek floated above it all, sometimes rising, sometimes sinking. When he finally woke fully, it was morning. The light was thin and gray. His side burned dully. He turned his head and saw Zara sitting on a stool near the bed, her hands folded in her lap. Her eyes had shadows under them. How long? He asked, his voice a rasp. 2 days, she answered. Gavril? He asked. She shook her head. Some say he drowned in the river, she said. Some say he rode into another country. Some say he is hiding in the hills, waiting. Rumors travel faster than truth. The village, he said. She looked at him for a moment, then answered. Half burned, she said. Some died in the houses, some outside, trying to save others. Families broke, children orphaned. They don't care whose hand threw the first torch. They only know whose war ran through their streets. Marek closed his eyes. Anton? He asked. Zara hesitated. He died while you were gone, she said at last. His heart finally finished what time began. He died in his sleep, before he could hear about the village, or about you lying here in your own blood. Marek lay very still, listening to the roar of silence in his ears. So, he said slowly, in one night, I failed to kill my enemy. I burned a village. I lost half my men. I lost my baron. And I did not even die cleanly myself. Zara did not answer. And the camp? He asked. My people. Scattered, she said. Afraid. Some want to leave, to run far from your name. Some want to stay and fight whoever comes. Some just sit and stare at the fire. Luka is trying to keep them together. Ian is whispering to anyone who will listen. The air smells of smoke and betrayal. Marek tried to sit up. Pain stabbed through him, blinding. Don't be a fool, Zara said, pushing him back gently but firmly. You're not the man who rode into that forest. You are broken in more than one place. He grabbed her wrist. Tell Luka to prepare them, he said. They must be ready to move. Police will come. Soldiers, maybe. We have to be gone before they arrive. Zara looked down at his hand on her wrist, then at his face. They already came, she said. The police. They walked through the camp, through the villages, through the ash. They asked questions. They took names. They took 2 men away in chains. They said they will be back with more, for more. They left because they were not ready yet, not because they are afraid. Marek's grip loosened. And what did Luka tell them? He asked. The truth he could carry, Zara said, and some lies to protect those who still breathe. He did not give them your name with a bow, if that is what you fear. But he did not erase you either. Your shadow is too big for that. He closed his eyes again. What are they saying? He whispered. My people, my wives, my children. What do they call me now? Zara sat very still. Some still call you Baron, she said, out of habit, out of fear. Some call you cursed. Some call you the fire that burned its own home. The children, she stopped. What about the children? He pressed. They ask if the man who lit all these fires can put them out again, she said. And I don't know what to answer. The days that followed blurred. Pain, fever, the slow, humiliating weakness of a body that once commanded horses and men now struggling to roll onto its side. Voices came and went. Wives took turns sitting by his bed. Leela came and wept quietly when she thought he slept. Some of the younger wives came only once, their eyes already shifting toward Luka, toward other men, toward doors that might lead them away from this falling house. Ian came, too, but not often. When he did, his visits were full of restless energy. We can still fix this, Ian said one evening, pacing the length of the wagon. We leave before the next snow. We disappear for a year. We hit small roads, small villages. We rebuild. When the police grow tired, when the villagers have a new devil to curse, we come back strong. Men like us don't die in beds, Marek. We die with our hands around someone else's throat. Marek watched him, too tired to be angry. Is there any we anymore? Marek asked. Or are you already telling the same story to someone else, just with your own name louder in it? Ian stopped pacing. You think I betrayed you, he said. Because Gavril knew you were coming. Because he chose that village. You think I fed him your plan. Marek said nothing. Ian smiled without humor. If I had betrayed you, Ian said, you would not be lying here, cousin. You would be under the river, with stones in your pockets. I did not plan that ambush. I misjudged him, that's all. I thought he was weaker than he was. That is my fault, not my crime. Marek closed his eyes. Leave me, he said. Go whisper to someone else. I'm tired of the sound of your teeth behind my ear. Ian stood for a long moment, then shrugged. As you wish, he said. But remember this, The story of Marek Dragan will not end with you in a bed, coughing blood. It will live on in the mouths of men. You can let them shape it as they please, or you can stand up one more time and shape it yourself. After he left, Luka came in. He sat in the chair where Zara had sat so often and rubbed his hands over his eyes. They're leaving, Luka said quietly. Small groups at first. Families who don't want to wait for the next raid, the next fire. They say they're tired of sleeping with one boot on. Wives are talking about taking their children to other camps. To towns. To anywhere that doesn't smell like burned wood. Marek swallowed. And you? He asked. What do you say? Luka looked at his father with eyes that had seen too much. I say we cannot live by fire anymore, Luka answered. It has eaten everything. Our peace. Our roads. Our name. I say we have to go somewhere quiet and build something that doesn't start with fear. You can't run from the road, Marek said weakly. It's in your blood. I'm not running from the road, Luka said. I'm running from you. The words cut deeper than the bullet had. Marek looked away. I did all this for you, he muttered. For my children. So you would always have food. So nobody could push you around. So you would never be the boy I was, watching his mother scrape the bottom of an empty pot. And now I am the man you are, Luka said, watching his father sit in the ashes of everything he built. Maybe the empty pot would have been kinder. Silence stretched between them. What will you do? Marek asked finally. Luka's voice softened. I will take whoever wants to come, he said. Women, children, men who are tired of holding knives. We will find some place far from here. Not a big camp, not a kingdom on wheels. Just a place to sleep, without calculating how fast the wagons can move if someone shouts at midnight. Marek nodded slowly. And what will they call you? He asked. Baron, leader, king of the tired. I don't care what they call me, Luka said, as long as their children don't learn my name as a curse. He stood. I came to ask if there is anything you want me to tell them, Luka said. The ones who go, the ones who stay. Marek lay still, feeling the weight of his own rings on his fingers. Tell them, he coughed, swallowed, tried again. Tell them the truth, that I wanted to build a fire big enough to keep them warm forever. That I fed it with everything I had. That in the end, I didn't see when the fire stopped warming and started eating. Luka's eyes glistened. I will tell them, he said. He turned to go. Luka, Marek said. His son paused. You were right, Marek whispered. About fear, about houses, about fire. You were right, and I was too proud to hear it. Luka closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Goodbye, father, he said. The camp grew quieter in the days that followed. Wagons rolled away, one by one, leaving deep tracks in the mud that filled slowly with rain. Children shouted farewells. Some women wept. Some did not look back at all. Zara stayed. When Marek asked her why, she answered simply, someone must be here to see the end. He did not have the strength to argue. The night before the last of the wagons left, Marek asked Zara to help him outside. His legs shook, his side ached. Every step felt like walking through deep water. But he wanted to see the field. She wrapped him in his black coat and helped him to the broken wooden step, where he now sat in the cold, watching the ruins of his kingdom. The fires that had burned the camp were out now, but the ghosts of them still danced in his mind. He saw all the faces he had ever burned away. Enemies, friends, strangers in villages whose names he never learned, men who had followed him without question, women who had believed his promises, children who had grown up under the shadow of his decisions. Luka's footsteps approached from behind, crunching on the blackened earth. Father, Luka said softly. Marek did not turn. You're still here, he said. I thought you would have left already. I will leave at dusk, Luka said. The others are ready. Horses are harnessed. The children are restless. I wanted to see you one more time. Marek nodded. So this is it, he said. The Baron and his broken fires. Names don't matter anymore, Luka said. Only the people still breathing. Marek looked at the sky. Gray. Low. Was it worth it? He asked himself out loud this time. All the nights. All the wars. All the wives. All the gold. All the blood. Was it worth sitting here at the end, with nothing but ghosts and ash? Luka did not answer. It was not his question to answer. Marek thought of his 15 wives, each with her own story, her own hopes, her own disappointments. He thought of all the times he had walked into their wagon smelling of smoke and victory, and never once asked what victories they had needed. He thought of Leela's quiet tears, of Mira's brittle laughter, of Zara's sharp eyes. He thought of the boy he had been, walking through the snow toward Anton's camp with a stolen loaf of bread and a heart full of hunger. That boy had wanted warmth, power, a fire that would never die. He had found all of that and more, and he had burned it all. Finally, he spoke. No, he said. It was not worth this. Luca's breath hitched. I will take care of them, Luca said. As many as I can. Your wives, your children, the ones who choose to come. I won't be you. I won't be Gavril. I will try to be something smaller, something quieter. Marek's eyes closed. Maybe that is what the world needs now, he said. Smaller fires. He felt Zara's hand on his shoulder. The road doesn't end, she said softly. It just changes. You can't walk it anymore, but others will. Maybe with less smoke. Marek tried to smile. If you see a boy on that road, he said, thin, angry, full of dreams. Tell him to be careful what he builds his dreams from. Fire is a bad foundation for anything that is meant to last. His chest felt heavy. Each breath was a hill he had to climb. I will tell him, Zara said. If I meet him. The wind shifted, bringing with it the faint smell of a distant village. Wood smoke, bread, life going on, indifferent to one man's fall. Luca's footsteps moved away, back toward the waiting wagons. Children's voices rose. Wheels creaked. Horses snorted. The camp that had once been Marek's kingdom began to move without him. He sat on the broken step, listening to the sound of his people leaving. Every creak was a page turning. Every shout was a piece of his name breaking off and blowing down the road. When the last wagon rattled out of sight, he was alone with Zara and the empty field. Do you want to go inside? She asked. He shook his head. I want to see the sky, he said. Just a little longer. They sat in silence. Clouds drifted. A crow landed on a burned wagon wheel, head tilted, studying him. Look, Marek whispered. One of my brothers. Zara almost smiled. You were never a crow, she said. Crows are wiser than that. They watch from a distance. They learn from other people's fires. He chuckled once, then coughed. Then what was I? He asked. Zara thought for a moment. A man, she said. Dangerous, foolish, proud, afraid, trying to be a god with nothing but matches in his hands. The honesty of it felt like a blessing. Marek nodded slowly. A man, he repeated. Yes, that, at least, is true. His eyes felt heavy. The clouds above him blurred. His breath moved in and out, thinner each time. Zara, he said softly. Yes. Did you ever love me? He asked. She did not answer immediately. He could hear her breathing, steady and calm. I love the boy you used to be, she said. I pitied the man you became. And I fear the stories they will tell about you, because stories have teeth. He managed a faint smile. Then tell one of your own, he said. So at least one story, as hands instead. He exhaled slowly. The air left his lungs and did not quite find its way back with the same strength. He thought of the first wagon he had burned, of the first house, of the river, of snow, of fire, of faces, so many faces. He thought of Luca's children, who might one day hear his name and ask if it was true. If he had really done all those terrible, shining things, he hoped, faintly, that they would never be sure. His fingers loosened on the edge of the step. The weight of his rings felt suddenly light. The crow on the wagon wheel cawed once and flew away into the gray sky. Marek Dragan, who had once ruled roads and wagons and hearts with fire and fear, let his last breath slip out into the cold air. It rose, invisible, into the smoke-stained sky and was gone. Zara sat beside his body for a long time, watching the clouds move. Goodbye, Baron, she said at last. May the next road be kinder than this one. Then she stood up, wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders, and walked slowly after the tracks of the wagons, following the thin, fragile line of people trying to learn how to live without burning the world around them.